This is a Game Boy cartridge. As you can see, it's kind of small and they're pretty hard to display, which is what we're going to be doing in this video. So option number one to display it is you put it on your shelf, but it looks kind of just lonely when it's just sitting there. And they also just sometimes fall over. Option number two is you can buy a complete box and manual set off like eBay, except they're $450, which is insane. So we're going to be doing something that's kind of unique. We're going to be using epoxy resin and making our own custom display piece for specifically Pokemon Emerald in this video, but you can do it for any Game Boy game. So here's the idea. Our base is going to be the ocean. We're going to try to get some pretty blue colors of resin in there. We're then going to be putting in the islands of Hoenn. Here's a map of Hoenn. It's the region of Emerald here on the side, so you have an idea of what it looks like. We're then going to be filling it in with clear resin all the way to the top while putting in some clouds to give the effect that it's up in the sky. We're then going to be resin printing Rayquaza, putting him on top. I'll paint him as well, make him look good. On the front of it, we're going to be doing a green emerald resin piece that the game can sit on. So that's the idea.
Okay, so this is how the water turned out. You can see we kind of separated the top part there so that we can add the green in later. Then we decided to print out a map of Hoenn, and we're going to use some cotton balls mixed with resin to make our green islands there, and we're just gonna lay the islands on top of the piece of paper. So here's how they turned out, and we're just gonna use a scraper to get them off the piece of paper. You gotta be pretty careful here so that you don't end up warping the island too much, and then we'll just lay it on top of the water. You gotta be pretty careful here so that you don't mess it up. And then once you've got it all in there, we'll just go ahead and paint with the epoxy around the edges of the islands there to give it, you know, a little more of like a beach-esque look. And then we added some white paint so that we could get like a foam effect there.
So this is Rayquaza after being resin printed on a cardboard box. And this is Rayquaza onto Civic. We primed him with some white primer, and then we're going to throw in some green paint that kind of matches the game cartridge and as close as we can to Rayquaza. This is what Matt had to say about it. He seemed to love it.
That is... what the fuck? What the fuck?
So this is the green pour on the front where the game is actually going to sit. So we just added some green resin, mixed it around, try to get some swirls just kind of like we did with the ocean. We added some paint to the island to give it some details. We added some browns, some yellows, some greens, and it looks about a lot better. It looks about 1,000 times better than it did originally. Here's a before and an after photo of how it looked. I took these for my wife, don't tell her, but they're just like cotton swabs that I'm using to make the clouds. It's pretty simple. You just add some white paint, some resin, and then you let it harden, and then you break it up into little pieces, and they look very similar to clouds, and it works really well.
Okay, so now we're gonna go in and do the clear pour for the first layer, and we'll just let this one harden so that we can kind of just place the clouds over it so it looks like they're floating up in the air instead of just like laying on top of the islands. So we gotta give that time to harden. And then you can see we also added these little dots here. This is to signify Kyogre and Groudon.
Now it's time to paint Rayquaza. Here's him with just like his mouth painted. Here's him mostly done. I just need to clean up some edges and add a layer of clear to him. But now that he's basically put together, let's put everything together and see how it looks.